Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our esteemed speakers that we have on the call today. My name is Bongohle Nkwanyana, and we are privileged today. We are hosting the Deputy Minister of Electricity and Energy to come and speak on a very important topic, energy performance certificates. And we have distinguished guests as well who are experts in this field who are going to be sharing their perspectives and their experience on this subject matter. So for us to start, just a few things to consider. You can ask your questions through the Q&A panel section that is afforded to you there for anything that you see through the presentation, and then we'll take the questions and answers at the end to allow all our presenters sufficient time to present. And then another thing, maybe just to note, just make sure your volume is up so that you can hear everything that is being presented here. Later on, as we are going through the presentations, I'll also be sharing a link to the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers What Now magazine to check the latest articles and what the electrical engineers in industry are discussing and so on. And also, please do, if you're an electrical engineer or an associate of electrical engineers and you want to join, please do reach out. I'll share the link for the SAIEE website as well, where you can join. So without wasting any further time, I will just allow Divaksha to introduce the minister for us. I'll just present from my side the bios, and then Divaksha will be introducing the minister for us. So Divaksha, over to you as I present.
Thanks, Bongo. Thank you to everybody who's joined today. I think this is quite an important topic, and the SAIEE wants to take representation upon this. So I really appreciate your time, and more especially to Deputy Minister Samantha Graham-Murray. Thank you so much for joining. I know how busy you are after meeting you this week at G20. Your time with us today is really, really valued. On behalf of our chair, Monde Soni of the SAIEE Power and Energy section, we welcome you, and to all our other panelists, thank you once again for making the time. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and present the bio of our Deputy Minister. So just quickly, Samantha Graham-Murray was a councillor in the Dr. Beyers-Naudé local municipality for 9 years before being elected to Parliament in 2019. When she was appointed as Deputy Minister in July 2024, she was still a novice to the energy sector. I wouldn't have known that. She describes the past year's learning curve as drinking from a fire hydrant. That is an analogy that I've not heard before, but amazing. But she's excited by the deep passion that people have for the energy sector. She's determined to maintain and support positive momentum started under Minister Ramakopa that has brought vital changes to the local energy sector. So I'm going to hand over to you, Minister, Deputy Minister, because I understand that you are quite time constrained. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Divaksha, and it was lovely to meet you in person the other day. So thank you for taking the time to come out and say hello. And good morning, everyone, and thank you so much to the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers for giving me this opportunity to be here with you just for a very short time, but to talk about a very important but not very sexy topic, which is energy performance certificates for buildings. So because I'm speaking to an audience of engineers, I'm going to try my best to be technical. As you hear, I didn't start off as a technical person, but I'm just some brief opening remarks as you embark on your conversations today. So I doubt that I need to convince anyone here about the importance of energy efficiency. It is the first fuel, and it's key to our country's energy security. For too long, we have not enjoyed energy security in this country, and this has left a terrible mark on our society and our economy. But I'm really proud of the turnaround that Eskom has performed, and while we're not out of the woods yet, we can all enjoy far more confidence in our system operator. It is in this environment that we can now talk about energy efficiency in buildings as not just something that is the equivalent of making your home or office load shedding proof. It's about being smarter with our energy and creating jobs in the process. When the EPC regulations were first introduced in 2013, it was part of an ambitious step to institutionalize a global practice. Beyond emissions, targets, and climate goals, energy efficiency for buildings just makes sense. Our homes are not built for the extremes of South African weather, and with rising energy costs, energy efficiency becomes as much about affordability and access, and not just about security. EPCs were supposed to move the country as a whole in a positive direction. This policy shift would lead to job creation and the development of new industries, leveraging existing expertise in the country and driving innovation. The 12L tax incentive was put in place to ensure that there was a carrot to go along with the stick. However, this shift was unfortunately undermined by constant extensions on the deadline for EPCs. And without this certainty, energy efficiency practitioners and companies were left without opportunities and futures. So I came here today to tell you that there will be no extension on the 7th of December deadline. We need to remain steadfast in our commitment to making energy efficiency a key part of the South African energy landscape and support the industry around it. While we won't be imposing any criminal sanctions for non-compliance, there may still be financial penalties. The Department of Electricity and Energy, together with the South African National Energy Development Institute, SAIEE, will be working with municipalities to identify non-compliant buildings and to issue fines. The priority now is to ensure that all property owners of buildings that meet the criteria under the regulations have, at a minimum, submitted their details to the EPC registry at SAIEE by the 7th of December, so as to indicate their intention to obtain the EPCs. The DEE and SAIEE will be available to provide support to property owners that require it, and we look forward to partnering with institutions and organizations like the SAIEE to reach all role players in the industry. Already, we are preparing to start work on the new round of regulations, bringing EPC requirements to further categories of buildings, with the final frontier being residential buildings. We're not stopping at large public and private buildings. All buildings will eventually require EPCs, and I anticipate that through discussions with the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, that future building codes will also reflect the shift to higher levels of energy efficiency. Okay, so if that wasn't short and technical enough, then I'm afraid I can't really help. But I know that I can count on the incredibly talented engineers in South Africa to be part of this solution, finding new ways to innovate and implement for all categories of buildings and all sectors, including transport and industry. And I want to thank you again for this opportunity. I'm sorry that I can't stay for the entire webinar, but you know that we are at G20, so we have a number of engagements. But there will be future opportunities to discuss this topic. And I'd like to ask everyone online, please, to spread the message of how important energy efficiency in buildings is and how it will become the future for all buildings in South Africa. So once again, Devaksha and your team, thank you very, very much for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for your time. We appreciated your inputs, were invaluable, and we will share the recordings. We also have an SAIEE YouTube channel where this will be posted, so I will also share the link with your office. Thank you very much, and all the best for G20.
Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day of deliberations.
You too. Bye. So I'm going to hand over to Bongo, who's going to introduce our next speaker.
Okay. Can you see my screen, Devaksha?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, school. I'm going to introduce the next speaker, which is Leslie. So Leslie Rameila is an energy practitioner at the South African National Energy Development Institute in the Energy Efficiency and Demand Side Program. With a background in electrical engineering and over 3 years of experience, he is also a qualified electrician with expertise in the mining sector. He manages the National Building Energy Performance Register, oversees the registration of EPC professionals, analyzes building energy performance data, and provides technical support. As a certified energy auditor candidate, he is committed to promoting energy efficiency and contributing to a sustainable energy future in South Africa. Over to you, Mr. Rameila.
Thank you, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Ramaila, energy practitioner at SAIEE. Let me just share my screen on my side. Can you see my screen, colleagues?
Yes.
So I'll be taking you through the implementation of the energy performance certificates for buildings in South Africa. I'll be looking at the following. My apologies, colleagues, it's not moving. I'm not sure what's happening. The slide, it's not moving.
Maybe if you stop sharing and reshare quickly.
Let me just stop
Just try
sharing.
that again.
Let's share again.
Yeah.
Apologies, colleagues. Okay.
It's okay. Okay, it's moving now. Maybe it's just a bit of a delay.
Yeah, I think there is a problem of network because now it's not moving as well. Yeah, I think there is a delay.
Yeah. Maybe you can just walk through it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Apologies, colleagues. I'll be looking at the following: the global CO2 emissions from buildings, why energy performance certificates, the background of the energy performance certificates and its application process, and lastly, the landscape of implementation. So when you look at the global CO2 emissions from buildings, the operation of buildings account for 30% of global energy final consumption and 26% of global energy-related emissions. Then when you look at the South African context, South Africa is the 15th largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, mainly due to its reliance on the coal power stations. So there was a need to respond. So South Africa has developed some legislative instruments which promote sustainable buildings. Firstly, we do have the National Energy Efficiency Strategy, which stipulates the targets for public-owned and commercial buildings for 50% and 37 specific energy consumption reduction. So this target must be met by two sectors in 2030. So energy performance certificate was one of the initiatives. So in 2011, Sunsen 400 XA were promulgated to ensure that energy efficiency is promoted in new building. And in 2021, this standard was updated, meaning that the requirements for energy efficiency buildings are in line with the need to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So in terms of the implementations, the energy performance certificate, you use this standard as a reference to benchmark the performance. So the Department of the Public Works has set out a policy for greening its own portfolio properties. It looks at the sustainable buildings construction in the following context: sustainable development, green buildings, sustainable buildings. So some of the factors to influence the department to form the policy was energy performance certificates. The question will be, why energy performance certificate? So EPC, it's an indication of how much energy is being used to operate a building based on the certain parameters. It improves the energy performance of the existing building stock. It can be also used as the first step to approach the sustainable buildings. EPC provide the credible data benchmark which can be used for energy efficiency interventions and environmental sustainabilities. So you cannot manage what you have not measured. So you need to know where you are in terms of the energy performance so that you can start with the implementation of the energy efficiency projects. Then when you look at the background of the energy performance certificates and application process, in terms of the implementation in South Africa through policy, SAIEE in this process, it's mandated to host and maintain the National Building Energy Performance Register, conduct the stakeholder engagements, and register EPC professional to obtain EPC for buildings. Then when you look at the department, it's mandated to promulgate the regulation, conduct the stakeholder engagements, and also EPC compliance monitoring and registration of quality assurance. So in terms of the EPC regulation background, the Minister of Mineral Resource and Energy promulgated the regulation for mandatory display and submission of the energy performance certificates in 2020. The regulation was further amended in 2022, extending the deadline to 7th of December this year. So the regulation also introduced the compulsory registration of buildings. Building owners and accounting officers are required to register the size and the type of their buildings on the National Building Energy Performance Register. So in terms of the application of this regulation, it applies to private buildings with a net flow area greater than 2,000 meters squared and a public building with a net flow area greater than 1,000 meters squared. All these buildings must fall within the following occupancy classes: A1, entertainment and public assembly; A2, theatrical and indoor sports; A3, places of instruction; G1, which is the offices. The building must be in operation for 2 years without any major renovation within the last 2 years. When you look at the parameters, failure to comply with the regulation, you can be charged the fine of a 5 million rand, or you can go to prison for 5 years, or you can face both the fine and imprisonment. So the deadline to compliance for energy performance certificate is on the 7th of December, and EPC it's valid for 5 years. So colleagues, please take a note that you only have 2 months to comply with this regulation. In terms of the application process for the issuing of the energy performance certificates, on the first step, you as the building owner or accounting officer, you are required to register the type and the size of the building on the National Building Energy Performance Register. On the second step, you are required to appoint the registered EPC professional to conduct the assessment in line with SANS 1544. Then on the next step, the appointed registered EPC professional will upload all collected data, analyzed data to the NBPR for the issuance of the certificate. Then step 4, the building owner must display the certificate at the entrance of the buildings and submit a certified copy to SAIEE within 3 months from the date of issue. Step 5, the department will appoint quality assurers and commission the compliance audits. Lastly, on the last step, SAIEE will send the renewal reminders in year 4 and year 3 to the building owners and accounting officers to renew their certificate as it is valid for 5 years. So in terms of our key stakeholders, we do have the department and SAIEE, and then we also have the SAPS, which is responsible for development of the standards. And then we have quality assurers, which are responsible for assuring the work done by the registered professionals. Then we have registered professional who issue EPCs to the building owners. And then we do have the building owners and accounting officers, which are responsible for registering the buildings on the National Building Energy Performance Register. We as SAIEE, we have developed a digital database, which we call a National Building Energy Performance Register, which is available online. In case if you need to register your building, you can click the link below. In case if you want to become one of the registered professionals, you can also click on the link below. Or in case if you want to see the list of all these professionals, you can also click the link below. In terms of the information preparation for energy performance certificate, firstly, we need the energy consumption data. You have to identify all energy sources of the building. It can be solar PV, electricity, liquid fuel. The data must be of 12 months in kilowatt hour. Energy consumption can be obtained from the following: energy bills, invoices, meters. In terms of the building information, we need the building floor plans. You need to identify unoccupied areas, vacant areas. You also need to identify the exclusion areas, storerooms, basement, parkings, and garages. You need to know the number of floors, building address, and location. So in terms of the occupancy information, we need the following: the occupancy certificate, the operational hours of the building, occupancy rate, type of the occupancy, is it single or multiple occupancy? You need to know the occupancy class, is it A1 or A2 or A3 or G1? And lastly, we need the major renovation. The year of a major renovation. In terms of the duties of the building owner in this process, the building owner must collect all required data for EPC, provide the support for conducting energy performance assessment, find and appoint registered EPC professional, and display the EPC at the entrance of the building, submit the certified copies of EPC within 3 months from the date of issue, and lastly, determine the strategy for building energy performance improvement. Please take a note that, colleagues, the availability of data can help reduce the cost of EPC. In terms of the landscape of implementation, so far we have issued 4,297 buildings on the system. And then we have 7,898 buildings registered. We have approved 80 EPC professionals, and then the department also approved 12 quality assurers. But when you look at the performance scale in terms of the consumption baseline, you can see most of the buildings are rated at G. So we need to see most of the building moving from G rating to at least starting from D, C, and B. In terms of the key takeaways, EPCs are tools which are used to determine the energy consumption of buildings, allowing building owners and accounting officers to implement energy efficiency interventions using credible data. EPC are recommended foundation to energy efficient and sustainable buildings. Building owners and accounting officers have only 2 months left to register their buildings on the National Building Energy Performance Register. Failure to register your building will result in penalties, as it is contravention of the National Energy Act. In case if you need clarity or you need any information, you can contact us through EPC inquiry website, or you can click the link to the NBPR. You can send the email directly to Snowboy or myself, Mr. Stalin, or in case if you need to escalate, you can send the email directly to Ms. Faith, our general manager. From my side, that's all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Leslie. That was very detailed and I think very helpful. To our attendees, you can place your questions in the chat function or the Q&A platform, and we will attend to it following all the presentations. Thank you once again, Leslie. We'll wait to get some questions from our audience. Thanks. Moving on to our next panelist, Corne van Rooyen. She's a National Utilities Manager for Redefine Properties and has been with the company for over 5.5 years. She serves on the Sustainability Committee of the South African Property Owners Association, SAPWA. With over 19 years of experience in utility management, Corne has developed expertise in various aspects of the utility life cycle, encompassing technical operations and data management. This extensive background has established her as a subject matter expert in her field. She's passionate about utilities and is enthusiastic about being part of this evolving landscape. Thank you, Corne, for joining us despite all the travels you have undergone this morning. And I'll allow you to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Please let me know if you can see my presentation. Just want to share.
Great.
Is it on?
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Corne.
Great stuff. Thank you. So I think we have now kind of had an introduction with regards to why the EPC. So I'm just going to take you through my presentation, and as the presenter asked, that we just add the Q&As on the chat box, and we'll get to them afterwards. So what are the standards? So we have SANS 1544 that basically introduced the Energy Performance Certificate as a certificate that indicates the measured annual energy consumption in kilowatt hours per square meters, and it is mandatory for accounting officers and building owners to publicly display the certificate at the properties, and we need to have registered at least by the 7th of December. So it is also important to then consider the SANS 10400, which basically provides us with the standards. It is mainly covering new buildings, although the EPCs was mainly introduced for existing building stock. So the EPCs will initially act as the indication of energy consumption. However, the purpose of the EPCs is basically to reduce our energy usage in our existing buildings insofar as to contribute to our transition to a low carbon economy. So as you know, it's proclaimed in the regulations that it's mandatory for these EPC certificates to be displayed, but we also have other legalities. So the EPC must be issued by an EPC professional. The certified EPC copy must be submitted to SAIEE so that it can be uploaded on the performance register. As you know, it needs to be renewed every 5 years. And very important, you cannot copy your EPC certificate. That certificate is only valid for that building that it has been issued to. And as we've heard before, there can be fines up to 5 million rand or prison sentences. But from what my understanding is from the Deputy Minister, the prison sentence is now not being looked at this current stage, but our deadline is still December. Then if we look at the performance scales, we have 7 different grades. So it's ranging from A, which is the highest energy performance building, up to a G, which is the least energy efficient buildings. So if we look at best practices as per SANS 1544, a grade D is considered an correct energy baseline. But it's important for us to consider our emerging trends in other countries. So if we look at what's currently happening in the UK, they are looking at all rental commercial buildings to achieve an EPC rating of C by 2027 and then a rating of B by 2030. We're currently now in SA, our best practice is a rating of D. So it's really important for us to understand where we're heading to with regards to the EPC standards and landmarks so that we can also start preparing for that as we go through our planning on our energy efficiency initiatives. So why is it important to obtain an EPC certificate? Sorry guys, I just have an invite popping up here. I just want to close it down. So as you know, utilities are one of the business's largest expenses, and managing energy is an important part of achieving any business continuity by driving down your operational cost and attracting more investors and tenants. So we have an obligation to reduce our carbon emissions, and the promulgation of the EPC regulations plays an important part in the cleaner energy future of South Africa and part of our larger net zero goals. So the motivation for net zero carbon buildings is driven by South Africa's National Development Plan, in short, the NDP goals, and the local climate change commitments, which includes the C40 Global Net Zero Carbon Building Declaration, which we have our cities like Joburg, Tshwane, Cape Town, and eThekwini, which are some of these signatories on that forms part of the C40 cities that signed this declaration in 2018. So these cities has a commitment to develop these regulations and do the necessary planning policies to ensure that new buildings operate at net zero carbon by 2030 and that all existing building stock has a net zero carbon status by 2050. So this is quite ambitious, guys. We are almost at 2030, so the time is ticking slowly but surely. And it is important to understand what the current energy performance of your property is, because this evaluation will allow you, as either the engineer or the assistants with the EPC or the building owner, to establish your baseline where you need to start working from to make sure that you put the necessary reduction methods in place to improve your overall EPC grade. So if I refer to a base load, that just refers to the minimum amount of your electricity demand required to meet the continuous everyday operation needs of your business. So how do we get there? And what is ultimately important? So like the previous speaker said, that the most important part of this entire process is definitely your data. The more data you have available, the easier it will be for the verification process to take place. And it is important for you to ensure that you get a trusted EPC professional that can partner with you. So from a redefined perspective, we have adopted to a smart metering approach. So the majority of our properties are already fitted with AMR capable smart meters and the remainder with manual meters, which we do retrofit as part of our ongoing retrofit projects. And it is important for us to make informed decisions, and that is why the data is definitely at the heart of our business. And it's not just important for you to understand your main distribution levels, but to understand your individual distribution levels. For example, your HVAC or your air handling units, even your common areas. Because if you have access to this sub-level consumption details, it will enable you to understand where you actually need to spend the CapEx to drive down your energy consumption. So again, make sure that your team and your energy partner understand your business approach and your needs in achieving the reduction results. Sorry guys, can you clearly see the presentation? I see I have some pop-ups on my screen.
I can see it, Connie. You may proceed.
Great, thank you. So also consider, sorry, I'm just going to backtrack. So please make sure that your energy team and your partners understand your business approach and needs in achieving your reduction goals. And you can consider upgrading your building's insulation, improving your HVAC systems, upgrading your lighting to LEDs. You can also look at auto switch off functionalities that allow certain circuits to switch off that's not currently necessary to be used, for example, certain common area lighting in your parking, for example. And you can also upgrade your water features to low flow and definitely look at renewable energy solutions. So again, just to reiterate, this famous quote has already been mentioned, but it's so true. So at the end of the day, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And as you guys are aware that electricity, for example, has become an expensive commodity, thus it is so important for us to reduce this consumption in our properties so that we have a more efficient building and more efficient operations. So I would like to share an example of the load data analytics that we typically do in our utilities department. So it is important for us again to understand our data. So in this case, what I looked at was a certain metering point at our main chiller unit at one of our properties. And I took July to September 2024 and I compared it to July to September 2025 to have a year-on-year comparison. And what it indicates is that we have seen an overall reduction of about 45,000 kilowatt hours over these 3 months, which roughly translates to about 15 kilowatt hours per month. Our average base load dropped from 40 kilowatts to 4 kilowatts. I'll show you the graphs now. And then we had an overall reduction of 20 kVA. So I'm going to show you the load profiles now, but I want to introduce the second load profile slide as well before we move to it. So then on the following slide, I'm going to show you what a acceptable base load versus an unacceptable base load looks like. So from the analytics over the unacceptable base load, we have seen an increase in kilowatt hours, which basically outweighs our savings that we've achieved in the year-on-year comparison, where our average baseload increase from a previous 4 kilowatt reduction to up to 60 kilowatts, and our maximum demand also increased to an additional 60 kVA. So if you look at the load profiles, you will see this is our 2024 profile where we sat at our max base load here, which was about 40. And as you can see, this meter logs each and every half an hour, and it will give us our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and our weekend loads for the entire year period. And this is our 2025, where you can see there was our 40 base load. Here we dropped to 30, and there we dropped all the way to 4, which is absolutely fantastic. And that is where we would want our base loads to function. So if we look at the next load profile, here you can see the increased base load. And as I mentioned, I'm showing you an acceptable versus an unacceptable base load. So here you can see how the base load increased up to that level. So even though the after hours usage still occurred, the base load was way higher. And due to that unnecessary consumption usage after hours, that led to us not meeting the reduction we would want to need or wanted to meet. So what happened here? And this is something that you need to consider, because we don't just want to tick the box, right? We want to make sure that we can move our grades from the majority of the property sitting on a grade of G, improve them all the way to D, but ultimately getting to a C or a B, which we are seeing is the emerging standards currently. So what happened in this instance is we did service and maintenance on our chiller. So the BMS contractor had to switch the BMS, or the building management system, over to manual for us to operate and maintain the chiller plant. So after the work was done, here you can see where that occurred. So after the unit was then switched on again, around about here, you can see the dip there in consumption. The contractor didn't go and double check from a building management system perspective that the system has now been placed back to auto. So that is why it is extremely important, especially from your operation or your facility management team, to make sure if you have had done any services or maintenance, any renovations, any fit outs, to go and make sure you review your load profiles to ensure that you're still meeting your acceptable base load. Because otherwise, all the work that you put in, all the systems that you implement will basically be at a waste if it's not managed and maintained correctly. And my closing statement, as I mentioned, please do not see this as another box to tick, but make a choice to invest in your assets' future. And in doing so, you are investing in a better and brighter future for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I think that was very insightful. There are a few questions, but we're going to wait for our next panelist and then we'll proceed with Q&A. Bongo, if you can go ahead. Thanks, Connie.
All right. So our next speaker is Songo Titiza. For those who didn't know, the idea of this webinar actually came from her. So I'm just going to quickly introduce her and read her profile. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
It disappeared.
It disappeared. Okay, I'll just read through her profile. So Songo Titiza is a sustainability or is a managing director for Green Buildings Green Buildings Design Group. So Songo is a sustainability expert with over 15 years of experience leading infrastructure projects in the public and private sectors of South Africa. She oversees capital-intensive programs that promote a net zero carbon agenda in the sub-Saharan Africa, emphasizing climate change resilience and innovation. As a founder and managing director of the Green Building Design Group, her expertise includes sustainable energy policy, circular economy frameworks, and environmental, social, and governance strategies, ESG strategies. So a passionate educator, she has trained over 2,000 professionals in energy management and green building practices. Songo is committed to using sustainability innovation to empower Africa's youth. Over to you, Songo.
You are muted, Songo.
Good morning, everyone, or pre-afternoon. Thanks, Bongo, for that introduction. I don't know if everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, excuse the technical financial proposal there. Yeah, thanks for that, Bongo. Just by way of introduction, the company that I represent is Green Building Design Group. We do, as Bongo had mentioned, really take the client from the strategy to the data monitoring, which is obviously issued with energy performance certificates. And then there's obviously a technology element as well as ISO management. So one of the other critical areas that we're really passionate about is the training, as Bongo had mentioned, because we do believe that as practitioners in this space, we do have a responsibility to ensure that the next generation will in effect carry the baton forward. Those are some of our clients that we have serviced, some of them also through the energy performance certification services, which we're very proud of. We've issued over 80 EPCs in across the various sectors, largely in the private sector, but also in government as well. So I thought we've spoken a bit quite about in terms of how do we get here. A lot of the speakers spoke about the benchmarks, I thought, let me just start off at the end. This is where, as clients, particularly as the 7 December deadline nears, this is what clients want to see as they near that period of 7 December. So this is what an EPC looks like. So for this building, it was issued in Cape Town about a year ago. Previous speaker said once the certificate gets issued, you have 5 years to effectively make those improvements. Luckily for this client, there's some minor improvements that they will make. They got a grade of about B. And as a previous speaker said, from your A to G rating scale, that D is it's recommended, but for now in South Africa, that D scale performance is recommended. We don't anticipate that it will be the minimum requirement, but there is talks of that as well. For this particular building, it was a mixed occupancy. So the whole idea of a mixed occupancy is that you have multiple building classes that are in that building. In this particular case, we had an A1, which is A3, which is a learning classrooms, and a G1, which is offices, as was previously mentioned. And then on your EPC, so you've got your grade that's mentioned at the top. Obviously, we know that from A to G, A being the very, very most efficient and G being the least efficient. So we obviously want our buildings to be at least at that D. With this particular client, they had a B rating. So to get to an A, there's minor improvements that they need to make. And where we also were quite excited with this client is that they had already started putting in some of the efficiency measures. So we know with obviously now with a big rollout of solar, so they also took advantage of that. But with the solar is obviously the efficiency, because even if you have solar in your building, you still have to use that particular clean energy efficiently. So luckily, this particular client had already started some of these interventions, particularly around smart metering, efficient lighting, and maybe the one thing that was going to probably take them to the next level is to improve the behavioral, because we always say that silent kilowatt, a lot of the actions is the actions of the occupants. If we can actually educate the occupants to have a better understanding of the building's performance and also have a better understanding of the technologies that are installed in the building, you can actually improve those energy savings by up to 5%. So yeah, I won't go over what was already been covered in terms of what the regulation requires. We just know, maybe I'll just emphasize that obviously for the government buildings, in order to publish your certificates, you have to have 1,000 square meters in net flow area for you to be eligible of those occupancy classes. And then if you're in the private sector, then the minimum requirement there is 2,000 square meter. On our side, we have a team of accredited EPC professionals, so we've been able to service the industry in this regard. So what do we do as EPC professionals when we walk into a building? First thing we've got to do is obviously we get appointed by the client. And then when we then engage the client is we want to come in, inspect the building holistically. When we talk about the building, it's the building envelope, right? We want to evaluate the net flow area accuracy, because also prior to this, once the client is appointed you as a professional, then they will send you the information. So the information that SAIEE spoke about, those bills, the smart meter data, along with also Redefine, the previous speaker, all those information from the smart meters, we will then collate that information and analyze it prior to us coming on site. So when we come on site, the objective is to go and actually verify the accuracy of the information. So what do? We evaluate the net flow area. That's why we need the building plans. We'll then also evaluate the exclusions, which is why when you go on site, one of the first things you'll do is you'll have to identify where those exclusions sit. Does the client have storage rooms? Does the building owner have parking areas? Does the client have a basement? How many basements do they have? So that we can exclude that from the total flow area, so that we can get a net flow area. And then we also want to confirm the accuracy of the energy sources, already spoken about. Largely, we're always talking about grid-based electricity, but now obviously with solar as well, and other carriers. So we talk about all the energy carriers. So this is typically being your solar, your grid electricity, even gas. Some building owners have gas, and a large, because of the times that we've faced with the energy security, a lot of them had to rely on diesel. And then we also want to evaluate the building's occupancy type, occupancy rate, the total building hours. So all those things are things that we'll inspect. So depending on the size of the building, I mean, this typically takes you about 3 to 4 hours in a building. As I mentioned, buildings can be quite complex, especially in the case where you've got a multiple occupancy, where some tenants are retail in that same building, others are offices, some are learning centers. So 3 to 4 hours could be the time that it takes you, and also depending on your level of expertise. But ultimately, it's about 3 to 4 hours that you will spend in that building. We've also had issues in some buildings where there won't be building plans. So you have to come on there and you have to do physical verifications in the form of like lasers, where you go and physically measure that area. So that could increase the amount of time that you spend in that particular building. So then what we then do as EPC professionals, we then compile an EPC inspection report where we calculate the energy performance in line with the standards that have been aforementioned. We calculate the EPC grade, the grades that I spoke about, A to G. And then before we submit this report to SAIEE, client has to sign off, but before that, a quality assessor has to actually review our work and sign that off as well. So there's quite a few layers that as EPC practitioner, I have to go through, because we're also not laws upon ourselves. We do have to abide by the legislations that have been aforementioned. And then once we've submitted the report to be signed off by the client, then we then upload the EPC certificate on the Synergy register, of which then SAIEE has obviously listed their requirements. And one of the many very, very strict requirements they have is that those certificates have to be certified. Why? Because we do also have unfortunately had situations where you can get a fictitious certificate. Believe it or not, it does happen. Even as from a practitioner perspective, we've had issues where you've got a list of registered professionals, your name gets included in some tender submission, but we won't focus on that, but it does happen. So it's very important to make sure that we have the proper checks and balances. And then what we then do as professionals, as I mentioned earlier, once we've submitted the certificate to SAIEE, the certified certificate, we then issue this to the client. They'll obviously, when they then publish this on their foyer, the entrance area of the building, they won't print the certified copy. They'll probably print an A4 copy for the viewing of whoever enters the building. It has to be viewable. And so obviously they always say the law is very strict. The onus always sits with the building owner, particularly in cases where you have got multiple occupancies or you've got multiple tenants that are in that building. The responsibility always sits with the building owner. All right, so that's what we do from an EPC professional. I won't touch too much on the client, but same applies on the client side. So their responsibility is to ensure that they provide us that information timelessly, particularly one issue that's always contentious, especially with places of high security points, where some government sector stakeholders might find it a little bit challenging to provide those building plans. So you just have to engage the client and sensitize the client beforehand. And then when it comes to obviously access, we're obviously very sensitive to this as well. We can't just as professionals just come in. That's why you have to have the engagement letter from the client. Give yourself enough time to look through the data so that you can actually, when you're going through the building, you've actually already got to have like a better understanding. You'll have the building plans, but then you'll have maybe like an FM or operations manager, property manager that will take you through the building. Also because you're viewing some very sensitive clients' infrastructure. So it's always important that as with the client and as the professional that they are with you these times. I mean, also you'll typically find while you're doing your audit, building occupants, being interested to see what is it that you're doing there as a professional. And then once again, from the client side, their onus is to then display the certificate. It's already been mentioned that it's valid for 5 years. And one of the reasons, obviously, it's 5 years. It gives you sufficient time as a client or building owner to then put those OPEX, CAPEX budgets in place to implement energy optimization projects so that you can actually get to optimal building performance. All right, so when we send out the building information, this is normally how it looks like. It's in Excel. Some practitioners, quite fancy, they will have maybe a web link, where your buildings then where the client has to provide the building details, like building owner, the legal name of the company, because that's what's going to appear on the certificate, your registration number, the building name. Some clients have a portfolio of buildings. Maybe they've got 80 buildings. So we need specific building names. Some big landlords will have maybe their building names by their street address. So building GPS coordinates, these are all information that will be included in that EPC technical report. The number of floors, year of construction. It was spoken about earlier that these buildings shouldn't have gone under major renovation in the past 2 years. So yeah, it's also important that that information gets stated. The earth number, some buildings you find maybe they're on different earths. You have maybe a building that was consolidated, right? So it's also very important that you have that correct earth number for that building. along with the building management team, because in some cases where you've got a landlord who doesn't manage and operate their own assets, they might maybe appoint a different facilities management team. So you also have their contact information there. And then in terms of just the floor area, the things we spoke about earlier, purpose of obviously including this is obviously we want to ensure that we have accounted for the exclusions, as well as the obviously ensuring that you've got the right occupancy class, but also making sure that we are accurate in how we've then calculated the net flow area to get the net flow area, the purpose of getting, the net flow area. And then in terms of the annual energy data, those are the energy carriers that we typically look at, as I mentioned earlier. Electricity grid, these will come typically from your municipal meters. In some cases where some other building owners are more advanced, they'll have smart meters and they'll have a breakdown of all these energy carriers in their day-to-day or monthly reporting. So it's always fortuitous for us as practitioners when we come on site and we have clients that have their data ready. I mean, Leslie spoke about this. The more ready you are, the quicker the process will be for the practitioner. And then just also along with this, when we obviously come on site, we will then come and confirm all the exclusions that need to happen, like external lighting and things like that from a building perspective. So I would say as electrical engineering professionals, I'd like to just say that to implore that we get trained, we get ourselves trained, get ourselves accredited to service the real estate clients, service the real estate sectors. Remember, when we're talking about the real estate, this is just from a government perspective. I think government has got about 250,000 buildings. That's a massive opportunity that's there to particularly enter these value chains. And the opportunity doesn't stop at the certification. So post EPC, it's already been said by the previous speaker that as an electrical contractor that's accredited, once I've issued my EPC, I can still engage, the client, in that 4-year process to then, guide them in these energy optimization opportunities that we already mentioned. I mean, we talk about HVAC optimization, we get excited, electrical contractors, efficient lighting, smart metering. Those are the type of interventions. Maybe what's not mentioned here is the behavioral aspects to improve that EPC grading over the next 4 years. And then, of course, one of the other things that we have to do, and as the minister has mentioned, is that we need to start engaging those that don't know, and as a professionals, we do have a big opportunity because you're already on site, you're already working on certain projects, and maybe now a certain property owner that's your client that's not aware of this legislation. Have a look-see and see if they meet the eligibility criteria. And that's me for now. I look forward to the questions later, and I'll hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sobo. We're going to move on to our next speaker for this engagement. We have Daryl Chapman, who's a chief engineer at Eskom Holdings Research and Development. So Daryl holds a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science degree in engineering from Wits University. He began his professional career with Eskom in 1995, where he worked in the research department. He has more than 25 years of experience in energy management. In 2009, Daryl was seconded to Eskom's internal energy efficiency program as program manager for a period of 4 years. In 2017, Daryl assumed the role of e-mobility program manager at Eskom RTND before returning to the field of energy efficiency and energy management. Daryl is currently a chief engineer and senior researcher at Eskom RTND. Over to you, Daryl.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Bongo. Yes, you would have seen there I've been with Eskom a very long time, and I have heard every load shedding joke out there. So it is nice to be part of an Eskom that is well received at this point in time, because things have been going pretty well in Eskom of late, and Eskom has really been performing a lot better under the current GCE, and so we're all pleased about that. As I am also a user of energy at home and pay for it, we don't get free energy as Eskom employees. I wish we did. So yeah, we're also affected by all of these changes that we have. Yeah, so I am going to give you a very, very brief overview of what's happening in Eskom. I only have one slide. I'm really not going to take a lot of your time. So let me quickly share that. Great. Just can you just let me know when we've got that?
Sorry, Tero.
Sorry. Just give me a sec.
Okay.
Still coming
Here
up.
we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, Eskom then is one of the implementers of, in terms of energy performance certificates. So we've had a lot of information from the people that have put the program together, and some of those who have helped in terms of preparing companies for these EPCs, etc. But we ourselves are an implementer of these certificates. So we get an EPC certificate at the end of the day. So as Eskom, just go on down. Oh dear. To be stuck on this particular screen. Oh, there we go. So we obviously have a lot of buildings across the entire country. We've got a huge amount of properties. Some of them are smaller and are what we would call insignificantly smaller, so less than 1,000 or 1,500, whatever it is, square meters. But we have a lot of buildings that do actually apply where the EPC would apply. So this was just recently provided to me by our Eskom real estate department to track where they are at in terms of EPC. So there's 23 buildings essentially that have been completed. So it's not necessarily always one building. It can be more than one building on a particular site, or it can be a single building. Yeah, so we've got 23 of those that we actually have our EPCs for. We are still I've got 8 in progress. That's in the middle of that slide. And then there's still a number that are outstanding. And so in that case, there's still possibly a metering requirement. I don't expect you to be able to see all this. A lot of it's very small. I'm just giving you the high level numbers. So yeah, we're still awaiting metering data and so on from those other sites. But our key sites were all there and all done initially anyway. I'm just going to leave that slide up there and carry on chatting. But yeah, so we were in a fortunate position where we actually had a lot of the data and information available to us. But the reason for that is because we have already embarked on multiple energy efficiency programs over the years at a number of our sites, starting with our major key facilities, including our head office at Megawatt Park, and then the Academy of Learning, Eskom Academy of Learning in Midrand, and ourselves at the research building in the south of Johannesburg. So we'd already done several projects in that place, and metering was in place, and we could provide the required data. We could provide the information in terms of square meterage and the other required information. And let me just say that whether there was a punitive approach to this or not, whether you got threatened, well, threatened maybe a harsh word, but whether you got threatened with fines or something like that, it doesn't really make that much of a difference to us as Eskom. We would have wanted to do this as an exercise anyway ourselves, so that we can measure the performance of our buildings relative to each other in the various regions. and be able to see how they were performing over time. We might, if I have to be brutally honest, we might not have gone to the extent of the full list of buildings that we currently have, but a lot of our key facilities in the different regions would have been done anyway. Yeah, so, you know, and when we did do energy efficiency in the past, we went through rigorous M&V protocols to get the work done. And so in that, we'd set baselines and so on as well. So the work that we'd already done was very similar to what EPC does. It's just not as formal, and there were no certificates specifically for that. So currently we are already busy with changing our Eskom Academy of Learning, which we call EAL, and changing that to be a smart village, which includes all sorts of stuff. It includes energy efficiency. It looks at water, renewables, storage of energy on site, etc. So that's a site that we are currently busy with in terms of energy efficiency. But the work with the EPC stuff was done prior to that, because I think they pointed out earlier on that you don't want to have just completed an initiative at a site. You'd rather use it to track your progress as you move through this. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of work that has been done in Eskom. We have made significant progress. We are on track to at least get our buildings registered and on the list for by the time that it's required in December. But we have already made significant progress in terms of the EPCs that we have to date. Yeah, I think that's more or less it as an overview. So I'm not going to, as I said, I was never intending on taking too much of your time. That I was just requested to do a to give a bit of an overview of where we're at with EPCs, etc., from an Eskom perspective. So we do take it very seriously. We are very involved. We've been from the time that it was initially promulgated and put forward to the various customers and various property owners, etc. We were aware of it, and we got started fairly quickly on it. I don't think it's terribly difficult. In some cases, as I said, it does require metering to be installed, etc. But the gathering of the other information, we've never really found it to be too difficult to be able to get those things in place. So yeah, we're happy to be a part of the bigger picture there and participating in the program. Thank you very much, Chair.
Great. Thanks, Daryl. We really appreciate it. I think always when measures like this come into place, everybody wants to know what government and Eskom is doing. So I think you've given us quite a good overview that Eskom is participating in this and is also trying to get their buildings EPC'd as well. So thank you very much for that, Daryl. We are now heading into the Q&A session. So if I can ask my panelists to put their cameras on, and we'll go through the questions first on the Q&A platform before we move on to the chat function. So Claudia Headley has 3 questions. So I'm going to pose all 3, and I think they may be for Leslie, but we can just decide between us. With buildings and schools in universities, does each building need metering? That's the first one. Songo, you can also perhaps take that one as well. Claudia, we will check with our panelists to make the presentations available, but as mentioned, the recordings will be on the SAIEE YouTube channel, of which we will share the link to. And her third question is, will occupancy classes such as industrial and workshops be added to SANS 10400XA? So I'm not sure who to pose that question to, but any of the panelists are allowed to participate. So I'll hand over to you all. Leslie, maybe the first question for you, and then we can ask Songo to comment if need be. Thank you. You can unmute yourselves as well.
Sorry, Chair, the question is for me?
Yeah, so it says
Okay.
with buildings in schools and universities, does each building need metering?
Yes, each building needs metering because EPC is issued per building.
My
Thank you.
understanding as well. Kone Songo, I'm not sure if you have a comment on that question.
Yeah, no, just maybe just to add, because you'll typically find sometimes a lot of buildings have one bulk check meter, right? So the entire campus will get like one municipal bill. So as a result, you don't really know who's consuming what's the percentage of block H, versus block, C, in that particular, whether it be a campus or an office block. So it's always good to get an understanding of what the energy breakdown is.
Kone, I see your thumbs up, so I'm assuming you agree with that. Okay.
Definitely. So as I mentioned in the preso, it's definitely important not just to do your bulk meter, but definitely your sub-distribution levels. Especially if you have a big office park, it's important for you to understand what your individual usages is in your park that contributes to your bulk supply of your property.
Brilliant. Thanks. I'm going to go to her third question. Will occupancy classes such as industrial and workshops be added to SANS 10400 XA? We don't have anyone from a policy and legislation perspective on board, but perhaps the closest to this would be Leslie. Maybe you can give us some indication on that.
Thank you, Diwaksha. Currently, there are no talks in terms of adding occupancy classes such as industrial and workshops. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Claudia, I see your hand. I'm just going to move on to the other questions, and I'll give you the opportunity to pose your question live. Give me some time to just come back to you. Thank you. I'm going to start with the first question. There's been a lot of chat, and I really, really like that, and we encourage that. But I'm just going to go to the question. So Dr. Tony Mondio, who's actually the SAIEE chair for the Renewable Energy chapter, has a question. Thank you for the presentation. What are the main reasons for non-compliance in relation to EPC requirements? Does this apply to any building, including domestic? How easy is it for upgrades to comply? So I see three parts to that actual statement. So Kone Songo, maybe between the two of you, if we can tackle that question, so we give Leslie a bit of a break right now. So the first question is, what are the main reasons for non-compliance in relation to the EPC requirements? Songo, I think you mentioned it in your presentation.
Yes. So the only non-compliance is if you don't have an EPC right now. So I remember Kone said as well, and it is in fact the benchmark, the recommended benchmark is D, but it's not a legal requirement as the legislation clearly states. So the non-compliance right now is if you don't have an EPC. So you can have a bad EPC in the form of a G that you're still complying. Why do we have so many Gs? For those reasons. Remember I said, even if you have solar in your building, you could still be leaving HVACs on or not using you're not having efficient lighting, but even that clean energy you have, you're still using that inefficiently. So you can still end up with a bad, inefficient building.
Kone, does this apply to any building, including domestic?
No, so currently the domestics is not included. That's something that will come on board later on, as the Deputy Minister also alluded to with the opening comments. So currently it's only for actual buildings, not domestics, and also not industrial as yet. So yeah, definitely it's important for you to have that conversation with your EPC professional so that they can guide you on where you have a bad scoring or where your grade is being pulled down. So where do we see this inefficiencies? Because this will allow you then to know where do you need to implement the necessary efficiency projects for you to improve that grade. So you need that professional that can partner with you to say, okay, this is my efficiency journey. This is where we working towards. And then as you do your new application after your 5 years when it expires, you can then see how you are improving and ultimately where you want to end up meeting your 2050 net zero goals.
Fantastic. I think that also answers Dr. Tony's question about upgrades and compliance. So we'll move on to the next question. So my co-chair has a question to Leslie. Do you have an overview how different owners of buildings were engaged with the 2,000 square meter requirements for private building institutions like religious organizations and buildings? Were they engaged, and how are they doing generally in terms of compliance?
Thank you so much, Divaksha. Yes, we normally host webinars, workshops with different stakeholders to at least update them in terms of the compliance. But then I'm not allowed to share how different stakeholders are doing in terms of the compliance. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to ask a question that I've been asked previously, and piggyback off Bongo's question. With religious organizations, most of them are non-profit or considered they don't have funds to actually do this. How are we proceeding with engaging with them? Or are you not able to tell us that because of confidentiality?
Yes, indeed, it's confidential.
Okay, we'll park that one for now. Okay, so I've actually addressed Sandila Shangase's question regarding the standards. I see they have been updated to more recent editions. My fellow panelists can correct me on the chat. I did give him a link to that on the SABS site, and they've been upgraded to 2024 and 2025 editions. So you guys can just comment on that on the chat. I'm going to go on to a question with Wayne, and I think this one would be for Leslie again. So EXA has implemented a QR code for all professional engineers, where we are able to verify if you are a valid professional or not. Would this be something that could be included for the EPC so that that can be done online?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, we are in the process of updating the EPC. Then we're going to add the QR code on the certificate. Thank you so much.
I think that deals with the question, Songo, that you had brought up relating the fraudulent EPCs, and I was quite surprised that actually happens, but I guess everyone's trying to make their way to avoid the deadline as well. My co-chair has a question to Songo. Why is it important that the building should be renovated within the last 2 years? Is there a specific type of renovation that this requirement speaks to? I do see that you've mentioned it in the chat along with Claudia, but if you can just voice that, it will be good. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Divaksha. Chair. No, I think the point there was that in order to be eligible, right, the building must not have been renovated in the past 2 years. Why? Because we know, obviously, in the first 2 years of that building being in operation, as practitioners, is that you still need to get that stable understanding of what the energy consumption patterns are, right? So typically in the first 2 years, and because we also have XA where the legislation is very stringent in terms of efficiency requirements, all new buildings, for instance, have to comply with the XA regulations. So, but we do know that the much older buildings, which have been maybe around for 10, 20 years, those are the ones that really we need to get understanding of the energy consumption and the energy benchmarking. But for the purpose of 2 years, we know that a newly operated building, for instance, or whether a building that's gone under major refurb, the energy consumption patterns might still be unstable.
Okay, no, we hear you. What would be considered a major refurb?
Rule of thumb, if you have to submit council, like new building plans to council, so that's the rule of thumb. Major changes to the facade. So like for instance, the LED retrofit, it's not really considered, a big retrofit, yeah.
Brilliant. Daryl, we have a question for you, and that's from my co-chair. He's asking, so we looked at briefly the list of buildings that you have on the spreadsheet. We did not see warehouses, and so I'm not sure warehouse is not part of the category, but we didn't see the buildings in the power stations predominantly. Would you just give us an insight on that?
Yeah, so that is really due to the size of those buildings. So obviously we have buildings on site at power stations. So you will have an engineering building, you'll have the building that the operators sit in, etc. But collectively, they don't actually make up a significantly sized building. So there are smaller commercial buildings, and when we did our energy efficiency program, we actually looked at the efficiency, particularly of the lighting, etc., at each of the power stations as well. But in terms of the scope for EPC, they actually don't meet the requirements for an EPC at those particular sites. But yeah, so and just as an interesting point on the side with power stations and so on, when we did go and do some energy efficiency initiatives, as I say, a lot of it was on lighting and so on. You have to specifically measure around those, isolate those particular loads and measure them before and after, because you can't take that at a macro level. It just gets lost in the noise, basically, with all the other auxiliary loads, which are huge at a power station. Yeah, this is a point of interest. Thanks.
Okay, great. Sango, I'm giving you the opportunity once you get through the questions, but okay, proceed.
Just as an add-on as well. So one of the reasons why, just from a standard perspective, why those industrial classes are not included in the EPC reporting, it's largely because the SAIEE, its objective, it's to drive energy efficiency, right? And the objective there is thermal comfort of human occupants. So that's why, for instance, in an automotive workshop or in a power station, if you do that, you end up with bad EPCs. They'll all be G and they'll be really bad Gs, because the reason why SAIEE is there, and particularly for those occupancy classes, is to have energy efficiency attended to for the purpose of thermal comfort, which is human occupancy. Yeah.
Oh, that's a perspective I wasn't aware of myself, but thank you so much for that input. Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it. The next question is from Karen Foslu. I may have missed it in the presentation. Please just summarize what is determined as base load. Daryl, I'm going to give you that opportunity, considering you from the utility, to answer that one, if possible.
Yeah, thanks. So I think base load in this context refers to that load that exists when your normal operations have essentially shut down. So the example that was given to us earlier, not by myself, by one of the other presenters, was that Corne, I think it was that when your building runs its normal daily pattern in the evening, when the lights are off and the air conditioning's off, etc., there will still be some equipment running in the building. So you might have, for safety reasons, you might have a couple of lights on, or you might have a building management system that continues to operate, but it makes sure that most of the stuff is shut down, etc. That amount that is left over, that residual amount of energy consumption, is the base load. That continues there throughout the day, throughout the evening, and then as your load picks up, when people arrive in the morning, switch all their equipment up, then you start seeing this daily profile. You start seeing how it picks up when the air cons come on, the lights are switched on, etc. So then we get this up and down pattern within the day. But yeah, the base load is that residual smaller amount at the bottom, and that should be a very, very low amount, as I think Corne pointed out. There's no good reason why that should be significantly high. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Corne. I see you did answer on the chat as well, but thanks, Daryl, for that verbal response. Moving on to Thomas McCorma. Do currently unoccupied buildings need to apply for the certificate? Leslie, will give you the opportunity to answer this.
Thank you, Chair. No, EPC is not required for unoccupied buildings. But however, please take a note, colleagues, that in case if that building is not occupied but consumes energy, it means it's not unoccupied. So in case if it's consuming energy, EPC will be required. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think that makes sense. I think some unoccupied buildings do have their HVAC running or their lights on, so you'd obviously need to embark on that. Okay, from Akshay Ashok Kumar, he has two questions. If on a private property, there are multiple buildings on the property that do not exceed 2,000 square meters individually, but collectively occupy more than 2,000 square meters. Will an EPC be required for such private property buildings? Kone, I'll maybe give you the opportunity on this one. She's still there.
I am sorry, I was trying to get the question on my side so I can just read through it again. Can you just reiterate, please?
So we understand that EPCs are issued per building. What Akshay is asking is if per building you do not qualify, but if on a piece of property or the ARF, as Songo mentioned, we collectively get that square meterage, can you do an EPC on that collective square meterage?
So from my understanding, it is if your building exceeds that specific square meters and not for your entire precinct. So I'm not sure if Songo can maybe just come in if my understanding is correct.
So the first question is, and Leslie can support, is who owns the building? So if it's a case of we've got maybe a big landlord that owns that building, and then they've got sectional title deals with the respective business owners, then the responsibility will always sit, and the legislation always says, with the building owner. So yeah, that would be my first question as the practitioner on site.
Okay. Leslie, I'm going to piggyback off what Songo mentioned. Even if the owner or the account owner is a single person, but the buildings themselves don't meet the 2,000 square meters, but collectively they do they still need to apply for an EPC as a collective owner?
Thank you, Chair. Remember, EPC is issued per building. So in case if the building is privately owned, and it has less than 2,000 meters square, EPC is not required for that building.
Okay.
So I'm going to go out on the lurch and say that building, if that building is greater than 2,000 square meter, that building has to have an EPC. And the person that's responsible is the owner of that building.
Okay. But the collectively, as Leslie said, is not the way to do it. Each building needs to be 2,000 square meters. Okay, great. His next question, thanks, Akshay. Is the 7th of December 2025 the deadline for obtaining the EPC, or does evidence need to show that the building owner has commenced with the process by date? So we don't have the minister online to respond to that, because I think there has been some talks about showing intention of obtaining an EPC. So I think the closest to the minister is SAIEE. So I'm going to hand over to you, Leslie, if you can just answer that for me.
Thank you, Chair. Just to answer the question, the deadline for compliance is on the 7th of December. So there are no talks of extending the deadline. Thank you so much.
So Minister did air that there will be no extensions, which is a good stance to put into place. But what Akshay is asking, if you are showing intent or if you are showing that the duly process has been applied, but you haven't got your actual certificate, would penalty still apply to that building owner?
I'm not sure how to respond to that question.
Okay. All right. Now we won't put you on the spot. I think
I'll be in trouble.
Law is the law. Legislation is legislation.
Claude, he does want to get in trouble. Daryl, I see your hand up. Please unmute and proceed.
Yeah, so I don't think you actually need to have from what I heard the minister say, deputy minister say, you don't actually need to have your certificate in hand by that date, but you need to have registered the building for the process of obtaining the EPC certificate. I stand under correction, but that is what my recollection was of what the deputy minister said.
Agreed.
I also heard that, but I think we'll have to look at the recordings again to make sure. But we will just contact her just to ensure that we got the right message. I'm going to allow Claudia to come online. She's posed quite a few questions, and I did allow her the chance to come on verbally. Claudia, I've unmuted you, but you can also just put your camera on so we can see who we're speaking to as well. Thank you.
I was hoping to make sure you wouldn't ask me to put my camera
Okay.
on. But
It's okay. It's okay. Go
Thank you
ahead.
so much. Now, everyone, listen, fantastic panel. I am enjoying it thoroughly. I think as a registered professional, this is quite informative. There is tons of questions regarding the penalties, regarding the EPC compliance. I love it when the discussion goes around MMV as well. And I just want to say that these two solutions are so completely different. And one of the things that I want to actually bring to the forefront of this presentation and webinar is that I still find a lot of newly appointed registered professionals that have this understanding that a building can be certified without metering. And this is such a good forum where we can start transferring knowledge to say, no, that's not actually the case. And also, one of the questions that I posed is, okay, cool. And I think somebody else just posed it, so I don't want to be too repetitive, is cool, we've had this deadline. It's been extended so that building owners can achieve compliance by the 7th of December. And now we're getting an influx of clients that are coming in and saying, oh, you know what, now I want to move forward with my EPC, but I don't have certain information. And then they roll on the perception that now if we register with intent, I am then compliant. And I think that is something that really needs to be made clear to the public and to the building owners. And I think this is more for a DE sort of comment, and maybe the recommendation going forward is that when we look at registering with intent, what does that mean? How do we define it? Because we do have building owners that feel that EPCs is a grudge expense. You know, it's moved from compliance to boardrooms, but in some cases it hasn't been implemented. So when we consider the EPC current legislation and regulation that has been passed, it is compliancy by the 7th of December 2025. And if there is an addendum or an amendment or some sort of change, it needs to be legislated, but there also needs to be structure to it. There needs to be a way in which we define, okay, your building is now registered. What are the penalties that you're going to face? Because if you're not compliant in the next 12 months, what is going to be the outcome? And I think there needs to be that aspect of the policy that we need to take into consideration. And lastly, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm so glad I'm not showing my face right now, but just to speak and to bring this to the forefront, because as a registered professional, this is such a lucrative industry. It can promote employment. It can promote businesses into the green economy, energy efficiency. There is just so much of benefit for it, but we definitely need the structure. We can't have opinions and open-ended sort of assumptions that's being thrown into the market, because this does confuse the newly registered professionals coming into the market. And I just want to say thank you, and I hope my comment was fruitful and beneficial.
Thank you, Claudia. No, that was very beneficial. I think that's the question that Bongo and myself will take with our seniors at SAIEE Power and Energy section and see if we can engage some sort of firm commitment from DEE, specifically Samantha, Deputy Minister Samantha, so that we can get some solid comments being put forward instead of putting Leslie on the spot here. So we'll take that upon ourselves to engage with them on that. Thank you, Claudia, again, and apologies that I wanted you to put your camera on, but you've made some really, really good questions and you've had great inputs, and we wanted to see who was on the other side. Apologies. I'm going to move on to Guguletu Sigasa. How does remote meter monitoring assist with EPC building audits, and does it make it easier for remote metering platforms to show energy usage index and energy cost index as well? So I'm going to leave it between Daryl, Connie, and Songo. Either one of you can take this question, given the experience that you have with performing EPCs. Songo, maybe you can go ahead.
Yeah, just to start, smart metering, it's just basically gives you accuracy, right? And as Connie had alluded to earlier, is if you're in a case where you're getting one bulk check, council bill, municipal bill, and you have maybe 5 buildings in that office building, and you're only getting one bill. So it's difficult to understand, which of those buildings contributes, especially if all buildings are eligible for an EPC. So the best way to do this is just to put in smart meters, have those smart meters in place, minimum period of 12 months, so that you can get accurate energy data and an accurate energy breakdown that will then feedback, that should theoretically and mathematically sum up to what you are then billed from council, or whoever you are buying your electricity from. Could be from council or be from ESCOM directly, or even an independent power producer.
100%. Kone, if you can unmute.
I would just like to add on that it's always important for you to reach out to your remote meter partner and ask them to assist you with your individual and specific reporting requirements. So they do have your kilowatt hour information already. They will have your tenancy schedules or your tenancy setups to understand, or your total property GLA information to understand what is your kilowatt hour usage per square. So they can then do that necessary reporting setup for you to show you your kilowatt hours per square as well as your costs per square. So that's not something that you're going to get from your metering monitoring platform. No, you won't get it from there, but it is a separate set of reporting tools that they can definitely help you put in place.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Connie. I think you also mentioned in your presentation, and we all know the ad hoc of you cannot manage what you can't measure. So as much as many people think this is a grudge policy that is being put out there, understanding your energy usage is so fundamental to managing how energy is being used within your facility. So I think she's asking about the energy usage index and any cost index. There are smart meters that do assessments, or calculations can be done after receiving the measurements itself. Daryl, from your experience of the ESCOM sites, do you all have a remote metering platform that's available, or how exactly are you guys looking at implementing smart meters?
Well, smart metering, it must be said that smart meters aren't always required. You certainly do need metering. You need to be able to measure, but smart metering is essentially more to do with bidirectional communications, etc. So Eskom as a whole is moving to smart metering. We're even moving to smart metering for our customers in general and so on. Sorry, I lost my track on the question, but yeah, we do not have a central platform for this. We're working towards that. So we want to have a central database with a sort of dashboard that goes with it, so that we can actually see the performance of each particular site, etc. I mean, that's with the number of sites that we have, that's quite a thing to put together. So we don't have a central database that's centrally managed at this point in time. It's managed by the individual facilities managers on site at each building. So yeah, but it's something we're working towards. It's a great idea.
Okay, no thanks. I think I caught you off guard there when I said smart metering, because I was piggybacking off your comment on ESCOM moving into a smart building perspective. But no, thank you. I think any metering is good enough. It can move smartly thereafter. A question quickly. We've got about 20 minutes left online. Lunga Tojenis is asking, given that EPCs will essentially expose a building's energy inefficiencies, what measures are being considered to assist owners of poorly rated buildings to afford the necessary retrofits? In other words, how will regulation not just, I'm not sure what this word is, principle, but enable energy improvements? I think essentially he's saying, Songo, is that when you're going through the process of putting your EPCs together, you are spotting where the inefficiencies are. Can you tell me, from an EPC registered professional perspective, are you allowed to bring that to the owner's attention, or are you just there to issue the EPC certificate and an energy auditor has to then take that into their profile?
Yeah, for us, and I would imagine most practitioners, it's well within their interest as well to not just plonk the certificate there and leave the client, say goodbye, see you hopefully in the next 5 years. One of the other big objectives is to obviously ensure that we are taking the client along, the property owner along in their energy optimization journey. And that obviously vis-a-vis comes in the form of these are the opportunities that sit with you in order to optimize, your energy usage, and you can improve your energy efficiency. And then as part of the almost like take homes, you would then typically then present the client not only with the certificate and the report, but also recommendations on how they can improve their energy efficiency in the medium to long term. And maybe just to to add on, there are significant opportunities post the EPC. I think we mentioned that earlier. We always talk about the energy being a multi-billion rand industry. Energy efficiency is untapped, largely untapped from a South African and national perspective, and I do believe that EPC is really the starting point. I think that's probably the one thing that we want to maybe leave this. I would definitely want to leave the practitioners here with, is that the EPC is a starting point. There's a whole wide array of opportunities that we can engage building owners to improve their energy efficiency.
No, agree. Kone, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that one.
I think it's really important for you to understand that this is where we start off, right? But it's not where we should have started off. So for any well-positioned property owner, it is important for them to understand their building asset and how to improve it so that they have an asset that at the end of the day attracts investors and attracts tenants. So I'm not sure from a government point of view what other initiatives they will put into place to kind of incentivize property owners and even government themselves to get the necessary EPCs in place and to journey with South African government to basically meet our net zero goals. So I'm sure there's more to come within this changing, ever-evolving landscape that we find ourselves in. So I think we just need to keep our fingers on the pulse, look out for new regulations that gets promulgated, and also to understand how government will also assist certain owners or practitioners to meet the requirements.
100%, 100%. I think, as I mentioned, it's not a grudge, and Songo, you attested to that as well. It's not a grudge that government is holding over us. Leslie, you will agree with us from the late Barry Bradenkamp from SAIEE, who always posed, and there are several videos of him from news reports that he did, always posed that this is not supposed to be grudge. It's something to get people to address the first fuel, as we call it, first fuel, being energy efficiency. And the penalties are not to scare people, but just to make sure that we all try and improve so we can help our utility with the likes of Eskom and the municipalities and make ourselves more towards net zero. Leslie, any comment with regard to any programs that SAIEE may be coming up with, if you are able to share? I understand you are under confidence, but anything you can share with us with regard to assisting building owners to enable these improvements from the question that Lunga has just posed with us?
From my side, we do have a program on our side which assists municipalities, but I'm not sure if they do assist all the private owned building owners, but they deal with state-owned entities and municipalities. But I'm not sure about the private owned buildings. But we do have a program that assists with the intervention of those energy efficiency projects. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leslie. Perhaps you could share that with us, and we will try and share that information with the members that are online today. A question from Melisha Pillay. To follow up on Songo's response, my understanding was that EPC professionals, as per SAIEE's criteria, who assist a building to obtain a certification, are not permitted to assist the same building to save energy. Please can Leslie clarify? Okay, so she's posed this to Leslie. So I think in the past when we had SANES accredited bodies, and that's why I brought it to your attention, Songo, was that you had to have a definite definition between your SANES accredited body and your energy auditor. With now we having EPC registered professionals, Leslie, perhaps that has changed. If you can just indulge in that so that we can get Melisha to also understand that as well. Leslie, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, you can still issue, give recommendations to the building owners. However, you cannot assist them to implement those energy efficiency projects, but you can still recommend the changes on the building, but you cannot assist the building owners to implement all those energy efficiency programs. Thank you so much.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. I don't know if there's any hands, Bongo, so we can go live with any questions.
There are no hands, Devaksha.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any chats as well. Thanks, Melisha, for that question. I think it was a very valid question. Not seeing any more questions. I'm going to give the opportunity for our panelists to have any closing statements before we close the session. We'll start with Daryl. He's the first on my list, so I'm starting with you if you have any closing statements.
Thank you. Yes. So as I said, Eskom is a sort of from the user side of this thing, or the person receiving the EPC, we are fully supporting it. We think it's the way to go. It certainly is a way of kickstarting an energy efficiency management program. So yeah, we are fully in support of it, and we would like to see everybody comply in terms of this, so that we can start improving on our buildings' performances over time. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Leslie, you may go ahead. Closing statement.
From my side, I'll just say thank you for the opportunity, colleagues, to engage with the stakeholders and help us to at least raise awareness in terms of the compliance. So on my side, I'll say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Leslie. And just a side note from my side, Leslie was in the first EPC cohort. So I facilitated the training for that. So I'm so proud to see how you've navigated through the industry and now here with me as my colleague presenting. Well done. Thank you, Leslie. Kone?
Well, I'll definitely say again, you cannot manage what you can't measure. Absolutely important. And remember that this is all part of us transitioning to a low carbon economy.
Songo?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to all my panelists as well. For me, it's just to say it's the starting point. There's a long journey ahead, but let's start strong. Let's start by knowing what we consume, and then we can go and implement the optimization opportunities that lie ahead of us. Thank you.
Great, fantastic, Songo. My co-chair, Bongo, thank you very much for allowing me to chair with you. I'm going to hand over to you.
All right. Thanks to all our panelists. I'll just like to thank everyone and all the attendees came through. I'll just hand over to Sibusile to just do an official vote of thanks and then close. After Sibusile, this meeting will be adjourned. So Sibusile, you can go ahead. Sibusile.
Oh, I was speaking to myself. Sorry for that. Once again, good day, everyone. As we come to a close of today's insightful session on EPC compliance, I'm very delightful to be delivering this vote of thanks. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Deputy Minister, Honorable Samantha, for gracing us with her presence and sharing her valuable perspective on the importance of energy performance and compliance in South Africa towards greater efficiency and sustainability. A special word of thanks goes to Songo, whose foresight and initiative brought us to this important webinar to life. And thank you for identifying such a timely and critical topic as the EPC deadline is approaching. We also extend our deepest gratitude to Devansha, my partner in the chapter, for exceptional coordination, dedication, and hard work in ensuring that everything goes seamlessly, and from planning logistics to securing our speakers, and especially the Deputy Minister. And then to our panel, Leslie, Courtney, Song, and Daryl, thank you for your rich contribution and practical insight and insight. Your expertise have helped us to unpack this complex and complexities in EPC compliance, and giving us clearer pictures as we approach the deadline. And finally, to our attendees, thank you for taking the time to join us today and participate. And we appreciate your questions and engagement to this engagement. We hope you leave this webinar with valuable knowledge and renewed commitment on making sure that our buildings are compliant and they have good performance, and yes, we get the certification that is necessary. As you depart, I encourage the collaboration as you depart from this webinar. I encourage that we continue to collaborate, share knowledge, and work together to ensure compliance and ensure the sustainability of South Africa built environment. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I see, Leslie, you have a hand up, but I'm not sure.
Yes, Chair. For you, Chair, I just want to add something before we can close. I just want to add this. For you to fully comply with the regulation, you need to register the building, display the EPC at the entrance, and submit the certified copy. If not fully complied with the regulation, you will be penalized. Thank you so much. I just wanted to add this important message. Thank you so much.
Let's avoid being penalized, guys, and let's do the right thing. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Cornelia. You too.